Every year, the same thing happens. You launch an engagement survey, the participation rate is solid, 80%, maybe higher, and a few weeks later, you get back a beautiful deck with 200 slides, 4 colors and a clear message. Psychological safety is an area of focus. Trust in leadership needs work. Engagement is down 2 points. Leadership nods. Resources are allocated. You run 3 workshops. You refresh the values. You launch a new manager training program. A year later, you are right back where you started. The same people, the same way. The same managers are still inconsistent. The same employees still don't feel safe pushing back. So you ask yourself, why doesn't this work? We are doing everything right. But here's what nobody wants to say it loud. You are not doing everything right. You are doing something, and that something is fundamentally broken. You are measuring culture instead of moving it. You are collecting data instead of creating change. And the gap between we have insights and we know what to do on Monday morning is roughly the size of the reason your last 3 initiatives failed. My guest today is Omar Shbaro, CTO of VAI Solutions. He has built a platform called CultureSim that asks a simple heretical question. What if organizations stopped trying to measure culture better and started actually changing it? Today, we're talking about why the survey industry has trapped you in a cycle of measurement, why data alone doesn't change anything, and what happens when you flip from how do we know more to what do we actually do. If you have ever walked out of a culture meeting with a deck full of insights and no idea on what to do next, this conversation is for you. Omar, welcome to the Growth Hacking Culture Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hello, Ivan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting me on your wonderful podcast.
Omar, I want to jump straight to the big question. So you heard my story. I make it a little bit melodramatic about what happens when we measure culture, this 80% participation, decks, leadership nods, everybody agrees, is happy, and nothing happens. You have clearly seen this pattern too. Why do you think this keep on happening? Why we don't learn, in fact, Omar?
Well, we actually have the same gripe with the industry over this specific topic, because if you take an example of basically any company at the moment that tries to fix cultures with surveys and all this collecting data, they only collect the data and they mistake measurement for progress. Actually, they launch a survey and produce a beautiful presentation, hold workshops, and feel productive. But behavior never changes because you are not actually fixing the origin of the problem. The uncomfortable reality is that culture is not reporting a problem, it's a behavioral problem. The survey industry has become exceptionally good at measurement, but measurement alone does not create any change.
That's true. And on top, I have the impression that it is a good business. So just selling the data is so, and why would you care about what happens with this data? If people read it or not, or if it is easy to digest, if it is something that you can transform into real behaviors in the organization, you don't care. You have solved your thing and you leave it. Somebody else has to solve it, right?
And they don't eventually solve it. The next year they encounter the same exact issue, and then they'll buy another survey in order to compensate for the fact that the first one didn't work.
Exactly. Most culture surveys tell you that, for instance, psychological safety is low or that trust in leadership needs work. I have heard it so many times, by the way. But then what? How is a CEO supposed to turn that insight into actual Monday morning move action? Is there a way to start the work right there?
Well, basically, that's the issue with surveys actually, because you can talk about all day about leadership trust being low and the psychological safety of the workplace is not well, but what is the actual action that led to the employee in this company in order to feel like I have a low trust in leadership, or I have low psychological safety in the workforce? So basically, this is the fundamental problem that is caused by just collecting data instead of actually solving the issue that will actually transfer the culture from in the workplace from I have issues in this area to I am now solving this issue because I am using something that will make me change my ways of communication, my ways of treating everybody else in the workforce.
And also, I have the impression that the way the traditional culture survey is built, with this story, let's measure from 0 to 10 how you are doing in this specific type of dimension. It's a little bit flawed. You don't have enough information about what is the root cause, right?
100%, 100%. It actually needs to be a studied incident or something like that in order to know what should be changed for the next time that a situation like this happens. Because if we do not locate the root cause, how will we progress further into a better workplace for the employees? Or not just for the employees, for the communication between employees and managers and the different types of like subcategory of people working in the company.
Well, the ideal situation would be that together with this measurement, this feeling that you have about something is not going well, that you have a little bit of context so that you can understand. Because what we observe and we put a label on sometimes is not the right root cause, right? So you need a
100%.
little bit more of information than just I feel 7 with my manager.
Yeah, well, you cannot input what happened actually in a survey. So this is a cause of the surveys not working for culture change in the workplace.
The impression that this is what you have been trying to solve with you have built CultureSim to solve that problem. According to you, what's the gap between we have data and we know what to do in most organizations? Why the gap is so big, man?
I had this gripe specifically because of an old job that I used to work, where we would get like this survey and then we just like, okay, my psychological safety is that, my trust and leadership, but nothing actually changes. So I was like so fed up with the fact that we cannot have a culture change regarding to like my psychological safety going into work on a Monday morning. So I was like adamant on building a tool that would help out with this specific and that would implement culture change using real world inputs, using real world strategies that everybody in the workforce can implement starting tomorrow.
Omar, you made me think about this repetition that the role of AI is going to be so important. It doesn't replace a human, but isn't it better to have a doctor who can, for instance, consult an AI tool just to verify a little bit of assumptions or to see correlations that he hasn't seen, or a lawyer who spends hours and hours drafting the same bloody agreement, and it could be a little bit faster. And then I'm thinking, so is that the role that you want to give to CultureSim? Is it like I want to help the manager, the individual, and the organization to to know what to do, to have a startup idea? Because I don't believe that there is one solution for one problem. There is many solutions, and you have to start iterating. And action is better than reflection and philosophical meetings of 3 days to brainstorm on the topic.
Yeah, 100%. Because when people hear AI, they often imagine automation, predictions, or replacing human judgment. But that is not actually the role of AI that it should play in culture. The real strength of AI is pattern recognition and contextual reasoning at scale. This is a point that we do not realize about when we talk about using AI in the workflows. So basically, traditional surveys force those experiences into rating scales. But the AI allows us to listen to what people actually say. It can identify patterns actually across teams, managers, and organizational dynamics simultaneously. So it's a complex system. But the AI helps us to like break it down in simple terms for each and every single person in the workforce. So basically, for employees, they'd have something that would take their inputs and transform it into metrics, as well as leadership would have something to check out how they are doing on a scale, and then use this actual data and uh, make a strategy around it in order to have change ready next morning.
There is so many groups, organization investing millions in the annual engagement surveys. So you have these big ones, the Gallups, the Mercer, the Qualtrics, you name it. The whole industry has built a measurement of something, repackaged with a sexy name and so on. But is the problem that we are measuring the wrong things, or that we are measuring instead of doing? What is the real problem? Measuring wrong things or measuring instead of just do it?
Basically, what we have after a survey input, it's basically sort of a culture noise. So you can take all the numbers and the ratings and whatnot. How do we transform this actual culture inputs and data into readable signals? You know, this is the actual issue of the survey industry at the moment for culture change. So they can collect thousands of comments, observations, and opinions, but those inputs are often filled with nuance, contradictions, and emotional context. Traditional analysis tends to reduce everything into themes and percentages, which frequently strips away meaning. It's very easy to contradict the inputs with actual meaning of the culture. So, for example, employees might say they love their team while actively searching for another job, and no one would even notice in the workforce that they are actually not satisfied with how the culture in the workforce is actually at the moment. Many systems see contradictions, we see a signal. That tension often reveals a deeper issue with leadership, workload recognition, or career growth. These are the main issues that tend to push out the employees to leave their jobs for another job. So, readable signals are specific and contextual. Instead of saying trust is low, a meaningful signal might reveal that trust broke between managers and individual contributors after a restructuring effort within a particular department. Once the signal becomes clear, action becomes possible.
And I'm thinking just loud, imagining this poor person in human resources reading for the first time a survey of 200 pages with a lot of data. It's not her background to go and see a little bit like the spider chart and make meaning out of that. What is great is to have a system that talks the human language, a language that this person understands. Maybe she has a psychological degree, maybe not. Maybe she comes from English literature or whatsoever. But if I understand what it means, all this in my language, I can take better actions, right, Omar?
100%. And moreover, who wouldn't want a friend that he can talk to back and forth with? And like, just like if you had a normal friend and you went out for a coffee, and like my work is not doing well, I'm having issues with my manager, he is being crappy and he is taking my off days. So, like, basically, the power of AI is that you can have that sort of thing, but with someone who is available 24/7, who you can talk to any moment of any day, which also could understand you and could give you insights on what to do next and give you some advice actually about it, just like a friend would in real life.
That's quite awesome, and very often I hear also the one of the main use cases for AI is to talk about ourselves like a friend. Like if I have a little bit of problems, I have been feeling tired for the last week. I don't know if it is because I'm overwhelmed about work and so on. And I have done the test myself, and AI already knows what I've been working on because I do a lot of work on AI, and he gives me feedback that is saying, "Yeah, dude, if you are doing everything at 8 o'clock p.m. and in the evening, of course you're going to be dead, and you don't have time to recharge." And I like it that he knows me already, and but my wife doesn't even know half of what I'm doing during the day, and
100%.
and on top, my wife would slap me if I don't do the right things.
Yeah, salary cuts at the end of the month would break us.
Exactly. Thanks, AI, for helping me. Oh, we often hear this. No, when people, in fact, hear this AI for culture, they think about chatbots and automated human resources decisions. And what I understood about your tool is that it is different. And I want to understand how different it is. What is actually different about bringing AI into culture conversation? And why is that important? In fact, why should we care?
Yeah. So basically, the whole pushback with AI actually at the moment is actually the AI being so, like, machined out. So people don't want to talk to a machine that gives them just insights and like just go away, come back next day, do this, do that, and then it's done. Basically, they just want some like emotional support, some guidance, as like a friend would in real life, as I talked to before. So basically, the automations aspect of AI has been around for a very long time, but now AI is being scaled into being a very good tool for many things. So basically, we have done a lot of progress on our application in order to make the AI feel not structured and give it freedom, give it personalities, in order to feel more human when you talk to it. Okay, so that's basically the whole idea that I was behind for this project, to be able to turn AI from the traditional automations and the like structured workflows into something that can be used in place of a friend of yours that you are talking to, that will actually take your own data and your own signals and transform them in a way that the manager would understand, as well as giving them advice on what to do next to be able to improve on many aspects. So like burnouts, basically the leadership trust, psychological safety, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a very good thing to have done. I'm very proud of it.
Omar, very often I hear that AI doesn't have the emotional context to understand human situations. Now, for me, it's a little bit weird because we humans have a lot of biases. So,
Yeah,
assumptions that we create, that we try to find the data to validate, right?
yeah,
That
100%.
happens very, very often. I'm thinking just loud about this comment that, yeah, the culture is not doing well because the mid management is not ready. We have a problem with the mid level managers. And I have
Yeah,
heard it so many times. But when you dig a little bit more on data, you see that it's not a mid management problem right now. It's not because of them. The root cause might be somewhere else. Cultural behaviors by the senior management team, some of the way they hire people, or they hire people just because of the cultural match. They are like me, so or they come from the same university as me. And we create, in fact, situations that are systemic instead of saying this layer is the root cause. And AI doesn't have that bullshit that we have as human. If it is well done, it can remove certain biases that humans have and give you a clear view of what is the root cause. Do you agree with me, or
100%. Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
it
yeah.
like a crazy idea that I have?
No. That's actually spot on. Because like, how do you stop the culture person that is coming in and providing the service from being like biased towards a specific side of the company? So basically, like, he might even try to protect the managerial side and try to blame the employees on basically being like non-productive and coming in late. So that actually doesn't happen with AI, because it's actually very ethical, and we also implement a lot of NLP, which is actually the natural language processing aspect of AI, in order to train AI not just on the input that you give it, on understanding the context behind what you are inputting and transforming it into data that would be reflected in insights, but it also doesn't take away from the context of the message. So basically, it doesn't just understand what you say, it basically feels what you say, and actually gives you back the feedback. So it's actually the NLP aspect of AI that allows us to be able to work on this aspect and kill off the naysayers about AI doesn't understand feelings and AI doesn't understand emotional intelligence, or some stuff like that.
I want to understand a little bit more, even though you have already started telling me a little bit how it works. But I want to understand. CultureSim is, so I'm trying to imagine the data comes in, whatever method of gathering the data, and then what is happening in this black box called CultureSim? Can you drive me a little bit through the process of what I input and what I get at the end?
Okay, great. So basically, for the employee aspect, we have also the system is a dashboard sort of thing, but specific departments from the company can view specific aspects of the dashboard. So basically, the employees has their own input of a check-in in order to talk to a person called Maya, just like me and you. So they can talk to them, and then they'll ask about like, how are you doing this week, and how is leadership treating you, and then you can input actually what's happening, like if you feel better about it, if you feel down, you can input about it, and then it takes this input and then transforms it in terms of an insight. So this insight is actually given to the managers to be viewed, but they are not given what actually happened. So basically, they can see what metrics they have to improve on, but they don't see the actual data. As well as the advisor of the managerial side, which also can help them improve on these certain aspects. Only the AI chatbot can actually see what the input was and then give anonymous feedback to the manager back in order to improve on this aspect. So it's actually very anonymous in terms of who inputted the data and what they said about it, so that we can protect the employees and they can feel free while inputting what they are feeling during the day, as well as we can take it in a sort of anonymous way for the managers and to be able to improve on what they are doing, or basically maybe they can be doing really well and then they just have to stick with the plan and continue with it. But at least you'd have the insights, the real insights that you can depend on, and then you can build upon for later.
So correct me if I understood correctly. So the tool is giving kind of recommendations or advices at three levels. So me
Yes.
as the individual who is inputting my boss is an ass. He hasn't been recognizing anything that I do. Then that means that the boss gets the feedback, but not you are an ass. No, it tells
Yes.
you could try this and that. Because here we are talking about assumptions, I mentioned before. So it's not one solution for all or for a
100%.
specific problem, but maybe start with this. So the manager gets the information. The organization can also get information about the systemic problems that they need to be working on in order to facilitate the whole thing. So
100%.
and that is quite powerful, Omar, because I really love it. I love the fact that it is not about the organization with macro data. It is at each level, you can do an action that could work or not, but at least you have an advisor. You have like your small little friend consultant who is going to be whispering to you, try this. You take the decision at the end to do it or not.
100%. 100%. There's always a human in the loop while working on any sort of AI related thing. In order, we do not actually want to take away the decision making aspect, but we want to help decision makers make better decisions based on better metrics. This is actually what we were trying to implement. And here's the catch: we also have a strategy builder on the dashboard for the managers. So they can also help them in terms of daily tasks in order to improve everything from start to finish.
That's cool. You mentioned before something about noise, culture noise, and transforming this culture noise into readable signals. What do you mean by culture noise? What is it? Is it like some bullshit that I say I'm unhappy today, so I hate the world, I hate my company, I'm going to leave soon? Is that noise, or what is it? And how do you make sense out of what is noise versus real truth?
Okay, so basically, what I mean by culture noise is that when you actually input the data on a survey, you cannot tell which social demographics aspects are being taken into consideration, which actual departments that are being affected by this actual problem that is occurring. So basically, turning culture noise into readable signals is actually giving social demographic insights to the study, and as well as taking into consideration the different aspects of departments. So basically, like the marketing department could be facing an issue in this aspect, but not the accounting department. So it takes into consideration what are the responsibilities of this department and what is going on with the manager of select department, or even the senior level management that are asking like horrible tasks of this department. It takes into consideration every aspect of that in order to turn culture noise, which are like the signals that are not actually visible or clear, into something that is actual, factual, and can be transformed into an actual strategy moving forward to improve this actual problem.
I Did I understand correctly? The system is continuously learning. So that means that it's not about your specific company, but the system can learn that something works better, an action that is suggested works better with this type of problems, but it might have learned this specific action from somewhere else. And then you can benefit too. It's like having someone like the McKinsey guy without the price that you pay for the McKinsey guy, by the way, that's going to tell you what is going on in the industry. What is working too much, or is it like your people is used to underdo some work, right? He can
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
benchmark, let's say.
100%. So basically, we have a global data set that we have trained the agent upon for problems in the workplace, but we don't rely on it like extracting data and just spitting out a solution of those problems. It actually understands the context around these problems that were happening and tries to like match it between like closely match a problem with something that would work in the benchmark that we have given it, and then it can also map it specifically towards the company that we are involved in, because as you know, like global benchmarks are not actual what's happening in our local business, so you have to separate this from this. But it also helps in realizing what the core problem is and what the core problem was in the benchmark in order to help out with finding a solution for this.
I want to shoot you with another question, because I'm trying
Yeah,
to
yeah,
imagine this poor person in human resources is sitting in an executive meeting where there is this CultureSim insights, actions in front of them. What would be different between that situation compared to this or that conversation versus the traditional survey debrief? What is happening in that meeting? So you compare traditional versus a discussion about these are the results of CultureSim.
Okay, so discussion actually it gives you specific tasks in order to implement the change, rather than just like you have to improve on psychological safety and yeah, bye bye, see you next year. It actually gives you a specific task list and a timeline in order to implement this change, and then it actually studies back the results of this strategy that was implemented and tells you if it was effective. And if it wasn't effective for some reason, it can also modify it for moving forward. So it's not, nothing is perfect, but we can try to make it as good, better as possible. So if a certain strategy didn't work out, we can also the tool can also modify it for a longer period of time, and then checks out the insights like this improved on psychological safety, then this have worked, keep doing this, and maybe it can give also guidance for moving on for later and how to improve it further than it already has improved.
So what you're saying is that the culture sim is not a one-off exercise. We measure, we live. It is almost like a continuous iteration that you are doing, that people can log in again to culture sim 2 weeks later and say, whoops, this improved. Whoops, it didn't improve. Still the
Yes.
same thing, even worse, and blah blah blah. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
continuously capturing information. So the friendship, the relationship between the tool and the employees becomes a little bit stronger. I got the feeling, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are actually working on making it so interactive that it wouldn't feel like a chore logging into CultureSim in order to input your feelings and what's going on. So the best case scenario would be like a day, once every day that you can input what's going on. But even like 3, 4 days per week, it can also work out wonders for actually implementing culture change in the workplace.
If it's very difficult that once you have started putting yourself in the world of the traditional culture surveys, the pulse surveys, or whatever they call it now, to to get rid of the thought that, yeah, I will do it again, or I have a contract for 1 year or 2 years because it's cheaper. So yeah, I will have a savings of if I do it for many years with the same contractor. What could be your one piece of advice for that HR leader who's trapped into this annual survey cycle and knows that it's broken, that because you don't get really results and you have a reflection of the same of what happened last year? What is your advice for this HR person who is maybe sometimes scared of moving from someone that they know, but they know this person also knows that it doesn't deliver? What would you advise for this HR person?
Well, my advice for this HR person is to actually stop asking how to measure culture battle and start asking what one manager could do differently tomorrow that would improve their team's experience. This is actually a way more important aspect than saving money on a survey just because they have a contract or whatnot. Because culture changes through micro behaviors repeatedly, consistently over time. It does not change because another dashboard appears or because another annual survey is launched. The cycle breaks when organizations move from occasional large scale measurement to continuous small scale action. Do not wait for perfect data, start with imperfect action. This is a line that I always like to say. Culture is something managers practice every day, not something organizations review once a year. Ultimately, culture does not improve because executives understand better. It improves because people behave differently in the workplace.
It makes me think. I have I have dealt with people who are so pragmatic, especially I don't know, not the big corporations, but the smaller corporations who are so pragmatic and say, I don't need a bloody survey. I know what is going on. Sometimes they might be right that they know what is going on because they have easier contact with the direct reports, and that is quite beneficial. And sometimes they might be right, but you don't need the decimal to be right in order to make an action. And everything is iterative. So as you said it, and I love the fact that is that you come from this tech startup world. So you know that iterations, you don't have the solution at the start of any project that you are launching. You are continuously validating the pains of the customer or of whoever. And so I love the fact that it's iterative, that you can start with small actions. It's not about perfection, but because the iterations are going to make the perfection, because you are getting closer to what people need instead of having a plan that is going to solve all of the problems for the organizations. You start little by little solving the little battles that you need in order to make your culture awesome. And yeah, it's better to have imperfection but to move on, right?
100%. So basically, the problem with having a large scale, strategy moving forward is the person implementing the strategy has to coordinate with the lower tier managers or like the mid tier managers in order to improve on this culture change. Well, basically, our system actually implements like a single solution for every person, and without the need of the manager to be able to, not to be able to, for the manager to oversee everything minute by minute. So he can actually see the insights like at the end of the week and see if the culture change is being implemented. But it gives you specific task lists, as well as it doesn't feel overwhelming to the customers. So not the customers, I mean the employees. It doesn't feel overwhelming to the employees to have like a large task list like that. It just gives you like, today you need to do this. You need to talk to your manager about the specific thing. Try to be more nice. Try to be understanding. So small aspects of change can actually benefit more than a large scale like strategy that you will not bother to implement or you won't implement correctly, because for companies of large scale this is actually very hard to do in order to be able to like appeal to every single person working there.
Exact. You know what I like about the tool itself is that we all always hear this AI for good. So with purpose, not for mapping better drones in the during the war, but do something that is positive for our community, for our society. And this time I think that you have got it right in fact that it is not anymore about helping ourselves to be reassured with awesome graphics and specific decimals that are settled about where you stand in culture, but more about giving you the human touch of what actions should I do. And I like the fact that you have decided that to organize it in at the three levels where you can really have impact across the organization, because it's not about the top level to know this information and have some strategies that will never happen. It is about how do we make it that senior level is aligned with what the managerial level is doing and what the individual is practicing, and everything tied together with real actions, real behaviors, real psychology, human psychology, the same way
100%.
we train our kids, the same way we train other people, by doing and not by overthinking about it. Omar,
100%.
This is lovely. This conversation has excited me a lot. How can people reach you out to have a discussion, to understand a little bit better your views on culture and influence in making a big change? How can they reach you out?
Well, people can actually check us out on our website, vaisolutions.ai, and they can reach out to me personally. My email is omar@vaisolutions.ai, and I'll be happy to talk through culture, anything. Let's do it.
That's amazing. I'm going to put the website vaisolutions.ai and your email below this episode. Omar, it was really lovely to catch up with you.
A real
I
pleasure.
think we need to have another conversation on top. But Omar, it was really nice. Thank you.
The feeling is mutual, Ivan. Thank you for having me.